Now, show me your strength.
Can you fledglings handle this?
Hey everybody, I am here with the president of Nihon Falcom, Toshihiro Kondo, who was so nice to come and visit us at the studio to talk about The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3. I actually just got to play the prologue of the game, and I have some questions for you about Trails of Cold Steel 3 and just about Falcom in general. And my first question is, in this game, in Cold Steel 3, Rin is now an instructor. He's going to be teaching students instead of being a student himself. How will that new role, I guess, be emphasized within Trails of Cold Steel 3? How will the game, just through the dialogue or the structure or the mechanics, make us feel like a teacher?
なるほど。そうですね。
Well, to talk, I guess, a little bit about the setting overall, what the part that you played at the game, as you mentioned, is the prologue. And from there, what the game shifts to is actually the Thor's branch campus, which is where Rin is now a new instructor at this location. And the game starts pretty much with Rin arriving at this new town, beginning his new occupation as an instructor. And at one of the very first scenes that we see in the game from there is the entrance ceremony for all the new students. And this is where Rin's able to meet his class. He talks to them. At the beginning, he doesn't necessarily get along with everybody and vice versa, but the game proceeds from there.
Since you're leading a class and you do have this new cast of characters in Trails of Cold Steel 3, I know that later on in the game we'll be doing familiar things like going out and visiting places and doing field studies. And that is something that's going to be familiar to players of Trails of Cold Steel. And so I guess by doing those similar events, what is going to be new in Trails of Cold Steel 3 that's really going to make those activities feel different than they have in the past?
基本的にはですね、
as you mentioned, the game will proceed very much in the same way as the previous two games. But what really makes it feel different this time has more to do with the story elements, which is up until now, Rin as a student, he with his classmates would go out and they would, solve these issues that came up and go on these things together. But this time, now that Rin's an instructor, he's in the unique position to be able to counsel those students who are under his care. And so a lot of what will happen now we'll see is the students, coming to him and them forging bonds as a teacher-student relationship rather than on the same level as being classmates. And of course, in addition to Rin's role as an instructor, he also has fellow instructors. These are people he also goes to receive counsel for himself. These are people that he comes to have relationships with as well. And so there's kind of, these dual aspects to Rin's life here, both as a instructor and then as a colleague to different people within the academy.
Something that is new for Trails of Cold Steel 3 is this brave system where throughout battles you're kind of building up points and then choosing different ways to spend them, whether it's doing an order that will have an effect on the battle, like raising damage or using it during a link attack to get additional damage with a rush attack. It's a pretty cool new system that has a nice risk and reward element to it. How did, I guess, the process of that system come about? Like what made you decide to implement it into this game? And I guess, how do you tackle the challenge of doing something brand new while not being so different that you'll kind of alienate what made the combat in past games great?
そうですね。もともとこのシステムを思いついた。
So to talk about particularly the Brave Order system, where this came from was because, again, Rin's in this new role as an instructor. We thought it would make sense for, as an instructor to issue instructions to his students. And so originally we decided that, it was really suitable for his role as an instructor. But the topic actually came up in the office then, well, why is Rin the only one who can be able to do this kind of thing? And so we eventually expanded that. So many other characters within the game are able to use Brave Orders. And so that's how we decided to create that aspect of the Brave point system.
I know you get this question a lot, so this is not going to be a new one for you, but I know a lot of very passionate Legend of Heroes fans would love to play the Crossbell games. Is there any chance of getting an official localization that people could enjoy?
そうですね。ゼロの奇跡と青の奇跡。
So the thing about both of those games is that, they were originally developed for PSP. In Japan, and then later on they received what's called the evolution versions of them in Japan. But the point is that they're no longer able to be played on modern consoles. And so what we want to do as a company and what we're actually starting to prepare for is to be able to bring both of those games to modern consoles. And so right now it's still in the very early stages. There's not much to be said about it. But as we do this and as those plans become a little bit more solidified, we would like to absolutely start talks with foreign publishers and things and get that conversation going to bring these games finally out to fans here in the West.
That is very fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people will be extremely happy to hear that. Some key localization staff from previous Legend of Hero games are working on the localization for Cold Steel 3. But I think just any time that you switch companies, when you switch like localization staff from company to company, I think there's a little bit of apprehension just on the quality of the localization, I guess. And so with Cold Steel 3 specifically, what steps are being taken to kind of ensure that this is at the level people expect from the series, that high bar?
そうですね。
I assume you're talking about, localization quality overall, and I completely hear you. As you know, and as we're obviously very aware, there were some troubles with the localization of Ys 8, and so we took a very direct approach with NIS America, and we let them know that one of their responsibilities in terms of publishing these games is managing the quality of the localization. And so we were assured that, those things would never happen again. And furthermore, as you already mentioned, there will be some staff who worked on previous iterations of these games who are there to also help ensure that the same high quality level is maintained. And so we're confident that it will have the same high quality localization as previous titles.
With Trails of Cold Steel, and I know this is kind of your bread and butter, but it's this massive sub-series that's part of an even larger whole, and you've been working on this sub-series in particular for over a 5-year period, from Cold Steel 1 all the way to Cold Steel 4. What sort of lessons, I guess, when you take on a project like this that is, 4 parts, what sort of lessons do you learn from game to game? And I guess just in general, what has the process been like kind of tackling such a big project?
Talking about, I guess, things overall, as you know, this series began 15 years ago with the Trails in the Sky portion of this overall sub-series. These Trails in the Skies games were, A, they're originally developed for PC, and B, they were kind of a direct part of the lineage of the overall Legend of Heroes series. What came before was the Gargav trilogy. And we developed the Trails in the Sky part of this series kind of as a continuation of that spiritually and as an homage to that. And because these were developed for PC, these were developed with PC users in mind, which kind of tend to be a little bit more hardcore over in Japan. Now, when we moved on to the Zero and OWL part of this series, these were developed natively for PlayStation Portable. And the thing about that is that changing the platform the games came out on kind of changes the user base as well. And so we kind of rethink about how we presented this game and designed this game to think about those new users that we might have. For example, we thought about the character design and we thought about the world feeling for where the location is this game takes place in the series, and we kind of arranged it with things that we thought would be more in line for what consumers who are playing PlayStation Portable would like. And in the same way, we took a look at the battle system. And as you know, the overall Trails series uses what's called orbment, and in the Trails in the Skies games, that system was actually a little bit on the complex side. And so once we got to Zero and OWL, we decided to maybe simplify that a little bit more. And again, arrange it more for who we thought the players who were going to be playing it on this new platform were.
You mentioned that PC players in Japan, with that audience, they tend to be a little bit more hardcore, is what you said. And I'm always curious about, as a Japanese company, obviously you have Japanese fans and now you have overseas fans. How is the feedback from, I guess, those different audiences? Is it pretty comparable? Is it pretty similar? Is it pretty different? And do they have any different expectations or wants or criticisms?
Actually, when I first heard that these games were becoming popular in the West and other places outside of Japan, I was a little bit surprised. I thought to myself too, what specifically, I wonder, are they interested in? What differences do they like about this that maybe Japanese users don't? But then when we kind of looked at it, it turns out that most of them feel pretty much the same way as the Japanese players. Sure enough, it's those characters, what makes them tick, the story, and those parts that really resonate with people everywhere. So actually, it turns out it's pretty much the same kind of feedback we receive from both places. There is one thing I will say about Western users, and one particular piece of feedback that we've gotten from several places and several different people, is that they thought, have you considered maybe taking Cold Steel and turning it into more of an open world type thing. And, the thing about that is that because these games, again, are so story-focused and so story-intensive, unlike an open-world game where you can kind of do things at your pace, events can, occur out of order or in different orders, or you can just kind of proceed the way you'd like. Because these games are so story-focused and because the story you want to tell is so deliberate, it's really, really difficult to do that with this series. And so that's one piece of feedback that, we have to kind of not consider for what it is we're trying to accomplish with this series.
I would say, just taking a look at this generation, Falcom has had a very successful generation with games that have really been beloved by fans, and we're hearing talks of new consoles, and those are right around the corner. Just kind of as the president of this company, what's your mindset going into the next generation of consoles? I guess sort of what ideas do you have, or what goals do you want to tackle?
そうですね。
As a matter of fact, we don't have a lot of information yet on our side about the new hardware that's coming out. But what I can say is that what won't change going forward is what we consider the identity of these titles to be. So to talk about the Trail series, specifically we're looking at, again, a very story-focused game. Characters that you care about in a world that you kind of want to lose yourself in. And then on the other side of that equation, you've got a game like Ys, which is very action-focused. And we want to really continue to bring that really good, solid action to people. When we make Ys, generally speaking, that aspect of it comes first, and then the story and the setting and things flow from there. Once we do get some more information about this new hardware, obviously we'll begin to think carefully about what we can do with it, what new challenges we can have for ourselves with it, how we can evolve these series and move them forward. But that core identity of those games that we make that I just talked about, that's not going to change going forward.
My very last question is, I know you started as just a fan of Falcom. Now, as the president and overseeing this company and just taking trips and all that stuff, how has that impacted just your gaming life? Do you get to play Falcom games pretty regularly, or just games in general pretty regularly? Like, how much time do you have for video games at this point?
やっぱり時間は
Yeah, nowadays my time is definitely more taken up with developing games than it is actually playing them. But, I still try to make time where I can. For example, on the weekends, I try to play with my kids. We play stuff like Smash Brothers, World of Tanks, things like that. And I also try to play as many games as I can. I usually only reach maybe the midpoint of games, if even that. But I still do try to make as much time as I can for them. And I know it kind of is a little bit of a paradox, working in the industry and making games and yet at the same time not having a lot of time to play. And it is something that I kind of struggle with. But I do definitely try whenever I can to play.
I know I said that was my last question, but I can't let this go. Do you have a favorite Smash Brothers character?
一番好きなスマブラのキャラクターは誰ですか？自分のプレイするキャラだと思う。
リンクですかね。
Link. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, Kondo-san, for your time. It was very generous for you to come down here. I greatly appreciate it. And well, I'm sure we'll see more from Trails of Cold Steel 3 very soon.
ありがとうございました。ぜひ楽しんでいただければと思います。
Thank you very much. Please do look forward to playing it, and I do hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dead soldiers of a dead land, you have proven your pride. The pages are laid bare. It is up to us to pen their contents. Numerous foes approach. Though they aren't who we foresaw, their skills are still worthy of note. Now, we shall see if they are worthy of our final experiment as well.